I'd like to begin with your thoughts on the changes that you've seen on the Iron Range in your lifetime. I know you have left and explored other territories and professions. I recently was interviewed by a researcher from Yale University who's been studying why people left the Iron Range, people like you. What was it that led you to leave, and what brought you back?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, when I was, after high school, I went to Augsburg. I wanted to be a doctor. So I was a biology major. I wanted to go pre-med. I got hurt my freshman year in hockey with a really bad head injury, and there was an actor from Minnesota named Josh Hartnett, and his manager had discovered me and said, "Hey, you ever think about modeling and acting?" And I kind of laughed, and I said, "Oh, I don't know, man. I'm a hockey guy. I don't know if that acting stuff is for me." And I have really strong faith. I'm a man of faith, and I follow my faith in my life daily. And I called my parents, and I said, maybe this is what I'm supposed to do with my life. Not everybody gets this opportunity to do this. And the reality is, as a young kid, and when your family struggles, you want to do everything you can to make life better for you and for your family. And next thing I know, I found myself on an airplane going to New York, and I lived in Brooklyn in a diverse neighborhood. As you can imagine, being from Edwith, the best education I tell people was not in a textbook. It was learning other culture and being around diversity and working 4 jobs, living with cockroaches in an old warehouse, chasing and pursuing a dream that of acting and with the modeling that I thought would make my life better and had the potential to make the life better for my mom and my dad. One of the things that ended up happening during that time, one of my jobs, I was a caterer, I would say, and I would go to these, we think a doctor or a lawyer is wealthy, right? Like growing up on the range. And when I was at a young age, when I went to New York, it would show the disparity of what real wealth looked like that top 1% wealth, like the multi-millionaire, billionaire wealth. Because I would go to these swanky apartments and hand out hors d'oeuvres to people, and they would just take it. They didn't think twice. It was just their champagne and an hors d'oeuvre. And I just remember thinking to myself, I'm working 4 jobs, trying to make my life better and the life better for my mom and dad, pursuing a dream of acting, and these people don't have to think twice about money, and it's also my family back home and people across the 8th district. They do the best they can to get by, and the disparity it showed me, and I thought it shouldn't be this way, and that's when I really learned about the disparity between that top 1% wealth and how people like myself and my family back home just doing the best we can to get by, and life is being made harder for us. I understood the difference there, and I never really knew it until I had the opportunity to move to New York at a young age.
I knew what that was like, Luke. I lived in Connecticut for years, and I used to cater parties for Henry Kissinger.
Okay, so you get it. You were a caterer too.
I know what the 1% is like.
Yeah.
So in your campaign, Luke, you spoke about growing up with economic hardship. Mm-hmm. We've heard your story, and needing assistance. Your family needed assistance programs. Mm-hmm. What specific reforms do you support that would strengthen those issues that Americans are faced with every day? Medicaid, Social Security, rural health care. And how do you pay for them?
Yeah, well, the big thing is, I think if you look at what Donald Trump, Pete Stauber, and this current administration are doing, like, for instance, putting tariffs on foreign medications, coming at 100% tariff on them, driving up prescription costs, not being reckless with tariffs and working strategically, right? That's one way. Taking the Part D out of Medicare, I think, is also reckless. We're forcing people in our country, with the decisions being made, to choose between their medications and their health care, or putting food on the table or gas in their car, and I don't believe in that. I believe being in a reckless war is driving up the cost of living in so many areas for so many people, and everyday people doing the best they can, people like myself, my family, and people across the 8th district. Life's being made harder for them, while it's being made easier for the top 1%. Pete Stauber, his voting record and the things that he's doing are favoring that top 1% and working against his people, the people that he's supposed to represent. So if I'm elected, I believe that not going into reckless wars, not being reckless with tariffs, and being strategic about how we're using tariffs to better the lives of people in the 8th district. Again, making sure that that the funds are in place, like the ACA subsidies, getting those back in place, I think, is something that's extremely important for starters, so people can have Medicare and Medicaid and afford their health care. Because if we don't, we're going to have to closing doors in our hospitals too, because people are going to show up, they're not going to be able to pay their bills, and then the hospital's not going to be able to pay those bills, and we're going to implode.
You saw that happening up in Silver Bay.
Yeah.
The 8th District is really politically complicated.
Yeah.
We have labor, mining, environmental protection issues, tribal interests, healthcare access, rural economic decline. All of those are colliding with each other. So if you think about it, Luke, where would you likely disappoint people who have supported your campaign?
You know, Duke, I'm not naive enough to think that, you know, at times, you know, people might not agree with everything I do. You know, I'm a human being. I'm not automation. I'm not AI. But I would do and will do everything I can to the best of my ability to do right by the people in the 8th District. And I believe that starts with having an open door policy and holding town halls and communicating with the people in your district and not running from them. You're going to have to, when you're elected and put in this position, I mean, this is something I thought about for a very long time before I decided to run. I've been in the public eye a lot. You know, I've been put through the ringer. I'm good at communicating with people in those areas and handling these things. And you have to face people and have the difficult conversations. That's part of the job. You represent these people, and those conversations aren't always going to be pleasant. You know, and you want to do right by your people, not your party, not the president, and not private and special interests. And I hope that by working in that way with integrity and transparency, I'll be able to do my job efficiently and effectively, and the people will be happy with the job I'm doing.
Great response. Many candidates say they support unions. You know that unions are a big, integral part of the Iron Range. So when labor priorities conflict with environmental priorities, as they are on the range, where do you land? For example, if a mining company and its project creates union jobs but raises various environmental concerns, which side wins?
Yeah, well, you know, this is a great question, because this is the issue, right? And I think, you know, we need to be working towards a solution where it's a give, take, give, and both sides win. We can't have it all our way all the time. It can't be one side getting their way or one side getting their other way all the time. I believe that we need to work, again, with each other and have difficult conversations and have a seat at the table. And you mentioned tribal nations, they should have a seat at the table during these conversations as well. And we need to be respecting their sovereignty. I think that if we go to the table, they're going to be difficult conversations, but we need to be able to do things responsibly, because we can't keep losing students and losing families from our district and not having the money or the tax revenue coming in to help our communities. And we need to protect our environment, because you got to remember, it's not just the people that have a second home up on the range or on a beautiful lake somewhere in the northern part of the district that want to have clean water and enjoy the woods and the lakes. People that live there and work in the mines want the same thing, and they want to do things responsibly too. So, you know, the federal and state regulations that we have in place, we need to abide by them, abide by the environmental reviews. And again, I think it's clear and open conversations and transparency that will help people feel secure, because people need to feel secure. And how do you know if anything can be done if you don't give people a bite at the apple to try? So I believe that in every type of industry, you will have environmental impact. Our job is to limit it, and we're focused on the moon and Mars. Don't get me wrong, I think that's pretty cool that we want to go to the moon and Mars, but maybe we need to spend some money and resources on being able to do things here responsibly so we can put people to work and protect the environment.
You've been critical of Washington and the dysfunction in the nation's capital, and that's fair enough. But what evidence can you give voters on Tuesday in the primary that you personally have the discipline, policy knowledge, and temperament to contribute something better instead of what some people describe as becoming part of that ongoing Washington spectacle?
You know, one of the reasons I'm running, Duke, is because I'm sick of the Washington spectacle. I'm glad I'm an outsider, because I don't want to be I don't want to be a part of the spectacle the way it is now. I told my team and my family and my friends by running, if I can be one person that goes in there and works with integrity and transparency, it has to start somewhere, and I'll be that one person. I'm sick of politicians who play politics and spread propaganda to gain votes and work against their people, much like Pete Stauber's done. You know, again, when it comes to communication, my communication skills being in the public eye and having things thrown at me, my ability, I'm a business owner, to get things done and communicate with people and get deals done, not taking no for an answer and never giving up. And when you get kicked down, getting back up, bringing that same fight to DC to fight for my people is extremely important. It's about the people. It's not about special interest. It's not about the president, and it's not about the party.
You've been critical of ICE enforcement and its dangerous rhetoric. So what specific immigration reforms do you support beyond criticism of current policy?
Yeah, well, one of the big reasons that I threw my hat in the ring is because it was hard to see what was happening in our backyard with ICE and what they were doing to the people in our communities, right? I never forget, I was on my Peloton. I was watching Christine Ohm talk about people being stuck in an SUV on a road. And I said, it's 45 degrees and they plow the roads in Minneapolis. She doesn't know what the hell she's talking about. She's just lying to people. But if you look at Donald Trump, Pete Stauber, and this administration, they've taken away 100 judges from our judicial system when it comes to immigration. They need to be put back there, and we need to give more resources, more judges to be able to handle our, green card applications and people that want to become U.S. citizens. It shouldn't take 10 years to do that. I believe when it comes to ICE, they shouldn't wear face masks. They should identify themselves. They need a complete or overhaul. They should have to wear body cameras. They need to treat people with basic decency and human rights and not tear children away from their families. Our police enforcement has 22 weeks of training and extensive training throughout their career. ICE is 8 weeks of training. They say, here, go to work, and they talk about bringing it down to 6. I don't agree with that. I think accountability is important too. We can't, turn our head to people abusing their power. Accountability is something that it's not just ICE. I feel like we see that with our president, and that's another thing. That's another reason I threw my hat in the ring, to put a lid on him. But accountability is important in making people think twice before they make bad decisions. They don't have a free for all to treat people poorly and do what they're doing. So
let's come back closer to home and your race in Congress. The DFL has struggled in parts of greater Minnesota, and that's no secret. Many voters feel culturally dismissed by our party. Do you believe that criticism is fair? And if so, how has the party lost touch, and what can you do about that?
Duke, when I look at things, and I'm friends with, people who were once Democrats and now have gone Republican, or they wanted to change, we have parts of our party that are very far left. I believe that the farmer labor part of our party is gotten weak. And we need to make sure that we bring that back. The Republican Party likes to feed on the far left part of the Democratic Party and use the propaganda that they're going to take your jobs away and they don't want you to mine, and all the other rhetoric that they use. And I don't believe that to be true. That's not how I am as a person. I believe that we need to put people to work and we need to protect the environment at the same time. It's the politicians who play politics and the propaganda being spread that creates a lot of these issues. But again, I think when it comes down to the DFL, we need to get back to who we are, and that's the Democratic Farmer Labor Union. And in doing so, I think we'll be able to get turn voters back onto our side. And, I grew up with Wellstone, Rukavina, and Thomasoni, and those are people that I look up to, and Jim Oberstar, right? I'm an old school Democrat. That's how I operate.
Is there one issue where you disagree with the progressive activists within the Democratic Party? And what about one issue where you think establishment Democrats have dropped the ball?
I mean, again, I don't know how it's hard. I don't know how they don't see the fact that in the 8th district, now every district is different, right? And in the 8th district, I spoke on this earlier. The same people who, whether they're logging or working in a mines, are the same people who they're living there. They want clean water. They want to be able to enjoy the woods and the outdoors and do the same things as other people. So when you have a party and you have certain people on the party that are opposed to those things, and you have other people who are part of the party that say, well, hey, I want affordable health care, and I want to, be able to afford my prescription drugs and then not be in a reckless war and have a lower cost of living, but I still need to work and my job happens to be in a mine. Again, I believe that we need to get back to who we are, and that's putting people to work, protecting the environment so that we're not working against ourselves, because we're blue collar people. Right now, this administration and Pete Stauber are working for the top 1%. It is hurting the people in the 8th district.
What would constitute failure for your campaign, Luke? In other words, how should voters judge whether Luke Gulbranson was more than simply an interesting candidate?
Duke, I've put my life aside and dedicated myself to this campaign. I've worked very, very hard on this, and I do it because I care. It's not another notch on my belt. Look at me, I'm a career-long politician and I went to school and I'm a poli-sci major and I just want to say, look at me now. That's not it. I see my family, I see people in the 8th District struggling, and they deserve better than what they're getting from Pete Stauber, Trump, and this administration. And I'm running because I want to make a difference in the lives of the people. Dude, I'll tell you a little story. In the morning, I read a little scripture. I say a morning prayer. And now everybody does their own thing, and whether they believe in something or not is that's their choice. But I'm a faithful man, and I've been blessed with a big platform. And I've had friends for years tell me that worked in politics, you should really get involved in politics. Like, you care about people, you know the issues, you're a smart guy. And I said, I don't know. I don't know if those politicians, I said, I don't know. And as you get older, your views change, your values change. And I was running a marathon raising money for Blood Cancer United. My mom has leukemia, so I was running a marathon and raising money for her. And I was talking to a lady, and we were talking about, she had flown in from Michigan, I flew in from Minnesota to run this marathon. We were talking about our Midwest roots, our principles, our values, and our morals. And she goes, Luke, do you ever think about getting involved in politics? She goes, you're a smart guy, you know the issues, you care about people. She goes, you have a huge platform. And I said, Joss, we'll see. I said, let's just worry about getting through 26.2 tomorrow. And Jocelyn Benson, Secretary of State, and now the Democratic nominee for governor of Michigan, great friend of mine now. And we had, it wasn't more than a few months later, I was watching the news after I had said my morning prayer, had my cup of coffee, read a little scripture. And I always say, use me as a tool to do good in this world, as much good as I can. You bless me with a platform and I want to make a difference. And Donald Trump was on TV spewing out some garbage before he got on Air Force One. And my parents had called me and they said, hey, can we borrow some money? We got to make the car payment. And the premiums are up and medication's up. And I said, yeah, no problem. I was lucky to be able to do it. And in that moment, I sat there and I went, wait, you've been putting this in front of me my whole life, or basically the past, I shouldn't say my whole life, but basically the past 20 years. And I said, I haven't been grasping it. And I said, I have the ability to do this, and you've been showing me, and it's been there. And I said, I need to throw my hat in the ring, and I need to run for Congress, because that is how I'm going to make the biggest difference in the lives of the people in the 8th District and impact people across this country. And that is when I decided to throw my hat in the ring. So I believe the question was about, would I be disappointed, or is there disappointment or something? What would it be if we didn't win? This whole process has been wonderful. I've been around amazing people. I've met amazing people in this district. I've been inspired by people in this district. I have hope that if we win, we'll be able to make a difference in their lives. And I'm glad I've done it, and we're going to continue on this path, and I'm going to trust the process, and hopefully we come out on top.
Peggy Flanagan or Angie Craig?
Oh, that's a great question. I think they're both good candidates. I have built a pretty good rapport with Angie throughout this process. I believe Angie's going to do very well in the 8th District, and I will be supporting Angie Craig.
So you've never held a public office, as you have said. So tell me about a time in your life when you changed your mind on an important issue because the evidence changed. So what's the issue, and what convinced you, and what did you learn from that experience?
I think in life, Duke, I think we grow as people every day, and every day we get up, we make choices, and we have a choice of how we're even going to approach the day. If we don't feel good in the morning, we can still have a positive attitude. And the one thing that I've learned in this as an example is just, you can only control what you can control. You can't control what's out of your control. And, the mindset of always feeling or thinking that you're right is a wrong way of approaching things, and learning to navigate and say, I can grow if I accept maybe if I'm wrong at times, and be able to do that. My ego is not that big. I'm just using that as an example because I think growth in how we approach things in our daily life is very important. And I believe that too many of our politicians feel like they do know it all, and they do have egos. And how are we going to do our jobs efficiently and effectively if we're not working with our constituents who are in the trenches doing their jobs every day? So, I changed my perspective from having an ego and knowing it all as a young man to saying it's okay to be wrong, and to communicate with people and hear what they have to say and be able to grow. So that's one way where I've switched that I think is important, and it makes me a better man because of it.
Democrats have spent a decade arguing that Donald Trump is uniquely dangerous to our democracy, and yet millions of working class voters, not just wealthy conservatives, continue to support him and the movement around him. So do you understand this appeal rather than condemn it? And what are the Trump voters hearing that they aren't hearing from Democrats?
You know, this is another great question. When you look at Axios did a poll, for instance, a blind poll on the things that people in this country really worry about or what are really important to them. One is safety. One was affordable healthcare and a lower cost of living, affordable living. And when they did the poll, it didn't matter what side people were on. Everybody wanted the same thing right here. The only reason that we end up over here is because politicians, people like Donald Trump, the rhetoric coming out of DC, the things you see on social media, the things you see on TV, it pulls us apart. We all want the same thing. We need to start electing people and putting people in office that are going to work for their people, not party, president, special interest. And in doing so, all of us that want the same things here, working across the aisle, working with one another, we'll be able to move forward and get things done. Again, it stems from how the people we elect handle themselves, the message that they deliver, and how the decisions that they make. And it starts with working for your people, is how we're going to change that narrative and change that environment.
Okay, so I'm a 35-year-old living in Evelyn.
Okay.
I'm working full time. I can't afford to buy a house. Groceries cost considerably more. I'm worried about my future in healthcare. What specifically are you and the Democratic Party offering me?
Mm-hmm. It's another great question. I think, again, when it comes to voting, that's how it starts, right, Duke? We have to make sure that we get out and vote and elect officials who we're not believing the propaganda. Here's the thing. Pete Stauber will go on his Facebook and he'll tell you, it's fraud. It's the Democrats' fault. They're taking your tax dollars. It's Somali people in childcare. Fraud, 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 Somali, fraud, fraud, Democrats. He doesn't tell you about Donald Trump not being able to have a foundation in New York because he was using his foundation money for his political campaign for his bills. He doesn't talk about Donald Trump pardoning his friends who take billions of tax dollars from healthcare or for things like healthcare, pardoning them. He doesn't talk about $50 billion a year in wage fraud. He doesn't talk about those things because he doesn't want you to know about those things, but he wants you to know the things that are going to get you to have his vote. When you go vote, this is why I say it starts with voting. What I like to do is I want people to be honest with themselves, and my job is to help you connect the dots on what is right for you and who is right for you and why they're not working for you and maybe why it's time for a change. Be honest with yourself and go, when I go to the gas station, I feel it in my wallet when I put gas in the car. I used to be able to go 20 minutes to the hospital or to the clinic, but it's closed now. I have to go an hour and 20 minutes away. Then I get there. And I have to wait a really long time to see somebody because this current administration and Pete Stauber are with like an H-1B with a work visa, it's $100,000. Hospitals aren't going to pay to have immigrants come in to work for that. We have a lot of immigrants as care providers across the Northland. We can't handcuff ourselves. Student loans from $200,000 down to $100,000 for NPs and PAs. Kids don't want to self-fund their way through school. They'll go do something else, right? So we're handcuffing ourselves there again. So now you wait forever at the doctor. You're finally done after 7 hours at the clinic or the hospital. And we've all been there. We've all sat at a hospital for a long time. So you finish that, you go put that expensive gas back in your car to drive home. On your drive home, your partner says, hey, can you pick up groceries? I had to make dinner. You go buy groceries. $200 gets you 2 bags. You go, I used to buy 4 or 5. You're sitting here looking at 2 bags in your hand. When you get home and you're sitting at the dinner table and your family's there, your partner looks at you and they go, hey, Tom wants to play hockey again this year. We got to sign him up next week. And, with your medications going up and taxes going up, and with the way things are with gas, I don't know if we're going to be able to pay for it. And it breaks your heart because you're doing everything right. You're that 35-year-old in Evelyn who's doing everything right. And they still can't afford to take care of their family because the people that were voted in an office are giving tax breaks to the top 1% while making cuts to things like Medicaid and Medicare and spending over $40 billion on a reckless war in the Middle East, making your life harder while making it easier for the people that don't need it. And then go vote. But be honest with yourself. Is life good or could it be better? And that's what I like to tell people.
I want to go back to the fraud issue just for a second, because Republicans continue to talk about fraud. Representative Stauber was talking about it again yet today. So how do you confront the fraud issue without allowing the argument to become government doesn't work, therefore we need to dismantle government?
I don't think we need to dismantle government, Duke. I think we need to start electing people that are going to work for people, not private and special interests, right? Not lobbyists and people who are in it for the right reasons. And I think that stems from electing people who relate to people because they are those people. They're not someone who just went to college to get an education and go have that be their job. fraud is something that happens all across the board. You remember how I said earlier about accepting when you're wrong and growing as a person? It's the same thing for politics. When is a politician ever going to say, hey, I made a mistake, or we need to fix that? Let's work on it. We got to use this as an example, and then we have to strategically work through this issue with the fraud and close those loopholes so it doesn't happen anymore. And it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you're Democrat, independent, or Republican. If you do something wrong, you're held accountable. Nobody's above the law. And that's how we need to start working. That's how our Congress needs to start working. That's how our president needs to start working. It's so important, and our elected officials are not doing it. It starts with voting.
So you weren't chosen as the DFL endorsed candidate, and the 8th district, is it winnable for a Democrat this year? And the reason I ask that is we've seen Itasca County vote conservative and Republican twice in recent elections. First time that's happened since 1918. So the Democrats tell themselves, we can do better because they don't want to acknowledge the district has changed?
Duke, this also stems from politicians and propaganda and believing the stuff. I mean, the proof's in the pudding. When you look at how life is being made for people across our district, we have project labor agreements being held up. I mean, our unions are the backbone of who we are in this district. Our union wages and union benefits. I mean, we have our representative, Pete Stauber, voting against a bipartisan infrastructure bill. We all know he loves a ribbon cutting because he goes to every ribbon cutting and acting like he's the one that brought the money here. He voted against it. Thankfully, it passed, right? But that's millions of dollars to put our union workers to work to be able to take care of, earn a paycheck and take care of their families. And not only that, make sure that our things are done by professionals who are trained in the skills that are necessary to work on bridges and roads and build buildings. When I talk to our labor, even when I talk to people in the mines and the steel workers, some people are still, on the Republican side, but there's a lot of people who are like, they're sick of it. I mean, we're labor endorsed twice now in the primary, and it doesn't happen very often, if ever, that are people getting endorsed in the primary. We're AFSCME endorsed. We're endorsed by IBW 242 local, and I am so proud of that. Because that is why I'm running. We need to protect our people. They need to have collective bargaining rights and be able to make a good wage. That's one of the things that's inspired me throughout this process, Duke, is seeing the hard work that people are putting in every day. Our union reps and people going to bat to fight for their people and go up against the machine and these people that are currently in government and the decisions that they're making. It inspires me because they still get after it. And seeing the people in the parades with smiles on their faces, despite life being made hard for them, they still find hope every day. And I think that I got a little off subject there, but I like to talk sometimes because I get a little into it, But we give me that. Where am I ending this, Duke? Give me the question.
I just want you to know whether or not the Democrats are willing to acknowledge that
yes.
The district has changed.
So the district has changed a bit in the sense too. I think with the propaganda and the Republicans leaning into they're going to take your jobs, they don't want you to do this, and people go, well, I want to be a Democrat because I know that's what's going to help my life, but I also need to work, and they want to feel secure, and in doing so, I think the propaganda brings people to vote in what's against their best interest. I want people to work, and I want to protect the environment. I believe in the democratic farmer labor. That's who our party is. So I think we can get people back. And when we're in these rooms, Duke, and being endorsed by labor twice here, we're bringing people from across the aisle and the independents back over. I mean, the proof's right there.
Has there been any resentment for your campaign? So you have been elsewhere, and now you come back with answers and solutions. Have some of the people in the Iron Range said, "We've been here all this time, Luke"?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, not at all. Actually, I actually had somebody, and I'm not going to name names, but it said, it's wonderful that you are able to get away and you've been around diversity and culture and experienced all these things because you can bring all that back and you can use that to take care of people in your district. I think if anything, it helps me as a person. It helps me with, it'll help me and allow me to do a better job for the people in the 8th district. And Duke, I've owned a home here for years. I'm living here, but prior to that, I would spend a lot of time here. I would go to New York and be like, I can't be here. I got to go back. I got to go back to Minnesota, because listen, I love the woods. I love the lakes. My family's here. My friends are here. My life is here. I would have to leave at a young age for work, and that's, I don't know, like that's it. So for me, the people across the 8th district that I've met with, that has never been an issue, period. Not that I know of. So
You have spoken repeatedly about your faith.
Mhm.
Pro-life or pro-choice?
Yeah, I'm pro-choice. I have 2 sisters, I have a mom, I have nieces, and a lot of women in my life, and I would never put them in a situation where I control what they do with their body.
The president repeatedly speaks about transgenders.
Mhm.
How much are you willing to fight to protect the rights of not only the LGBTQ plus, but the transgender folks in our society?
Yeah, I believe in equality, and I will fight through and through to make sure that they have the same rights that we all do.
Do you find it just abhorrent that the president speaks about our transgender youth in the manner in which he does?
I mean, anything Donald Trump does at this point isn't surprising to me. Every day there's something that he does that's ridiculous. I mean, the leader of our country acts the way he acts is, I mean, this is why I'm running. Again, we got to put a lid on him. But when you're put in that position of power, your job is to lead by example. And when he acts like that, that type of rhetoric spreads throughout our country. And I think it's reckless, careless, and it's unsafe. We need to put people in those positions that'll act responsibly and be the example that they want, that they should be for the people they represent.
You support an assault weapons ban?
I believe that when it comes to guns and gun control, we need to be doing everything we can to make life as safe as we can for the people, not only in the 8th district but in our country. I'm a gun owner. And I grew up hunting, so I believe in looking at limiting high capacity magazines and doing everything that we can when it comes to regulating guns efficiently and effectively to keep people safe. But I also believe in people's Second Amendment. The Second Amendment itself says, people have a right to bear arms, but it also says well regulated in the same statement within our Constitution. So we need to do our jobs in Congress to make sure that we're doing that. And also, gun owners need to be responsible. I went through gun safety as a kid, and one of the things that I was taught was to always be responsible for the guns that I own and lock them up and put them away. And as a responsible gun owner, we need to do that. And if you're not, and something happens, and because of you being irresponsible, I believe that you need to be held accountable.
Would you take money from the gun owners and the gun associations?
No.
Are there any political action committees that you will take money from more than others?
No. When it comes down to like APAC, corporate PAC money, we're a grassroots campaign. That's how we're operating.
So let's move on back to the trust issue. So how do you repair trust in our democracy and our government after the many ways in which our communities have been divided? They've been ignored. In some cases, they've been assaulted by the Trump administration and loyalists like Pete Stauber.
Mm-hmm.
How can you repair the trust?
Well, I think it starts with integrity and transparency. Working, proving that you'll work for your people in the decisions you're making through legislation, the bills that you're bringing to the table, the things that you're voting for or against, and the things that you're advocating for, and proving to the people you represent that you're not just a one-sided politician. You work for everybody. You work for your people. And that starts with getting a bite at the apple, Duke. I got to get elected.
So if Tuesday is unsuccessful for you, what's next for Luke Gulbranson?
Duke, I haven't thought about that in depth because the campaign has consumed my life. And what we're hoping for on Tuesday is a victory. So Dauber, again, I will reiterate that with these labor endorsements, we have proven that we're bringing people from across the aisle back over. And that is the recipe that it's going to take to be able to beat Pete Stauber.
If you are unsuccessful on Tuesday, are you a permanent resident of the 8th District, or
Yeah.
are you back to New York
No,
and the East Coast?
Duke, I've been living at my lake house, Minnesota for a number of years, and I will continue to live here. I will travel for work when I have to for work. Yes.
Okay. So tell us what that work might be.
So I am a business owner, right? That's why I have a maple syrup business. I'm in a Minnesota big retail company, Target. Took me about 4 years to get there. I was told no repeatedly before I got there. But I never gave up, dude, because when you're told no, you find a way. And I did eventually. I think for me, running my business efficiently and effectively here in Minnesota and marketing and growing is very important for me, especially because I launched in Target in May. But if I have somebody who says, "Hey, Luke, hey, I need help with real estate in New York," I'll fly out and work on a deal with somebody. I mean, I gotta live too, dude. I'm just like anybody else that has to travel for work. But my family, my dog, my home, my life is here.
People who have been involved in campaigns as candidates talk about how rewarding the experience has been because of the number and variety of people that they meet each and every day on the campaign trail. What's been the most disappointing part of this campaign for you?
I think the lack of sleep, truthfully. I really have not gotten a lot of sleep. Frequent oil changes, my wallet is taking a hit, the gas and stuff like that. But Duke, we could sit here and I could say like, people and the rhetoric that's thrown at me, but I knew what I signed up for when I did this. I've been in the public eye and I know how people are going to be. So that doesn't even really faze me at this point. I think it's more so it really is the lack of sleep and the fact that I'm gonna need new tires really soon for my truck, and it's just the reality of it. And but that's basically it.
If you're unsuccessful on Tuesday, will you stay active and engaged and work for Democrats across the district and in the country, because your name is out there and people know you and you have national exposure? Can you bring something to these national and other campaigns so that the Democrats can be successful in November? And what do you think the Democratic chances are in November?
Yeah, wow. Duke, I would love to help out in any way I can. I think it's important. I think, we all want change in DC, right? Within the House and the Senate, and not stacking the courts and electing a president in 2 years that is not Donald Trump. So I would love to stay engaged and help in any way possible, whatever it may be. People can reach out to me. I don't know. Sorry, I'm rambling, but I think staying engaged is something that I'd like to do. We just have to wait and see what opportunities come our way. But dude, we're gonna win on Tuesday. Okay.
I can't thank you enough, Lou. I can thank you for taking the time to be with us today. People have an intense interest in you personally, and I know that the campaign has been, as it always has been, can be troublesome for families who see what is being said about you each and every day in the media, and particularly social media. One final question.
Mm-hmm.
Artificial intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
What can we do to control it? Should we control it? Should we limit data centers? Should we stop kids in school from having cell phones because of the association that they can have with AI? What's the future of our technology and the dissemination of news and information, and often not factual?
Duke, you got 10 minutes? Because I can answer this for probably the next 20. I think when it comes to AI, we have to, there's a 6-month moratorium, right, currently, and I'm glad it's there, because I think that we need to work through a lot. This is a brand new industry, right, for us in our country, and we need to put in the work to make sure that we're working efficiently and effectively and responsibly. What does scare me about AI is what it's going to do to humanity. I don't know anybody that would sit here and tell you it doesn't keep them up at night, because what's it going to do to the human brain? What's it going to do to children? How are we going to develop as people? These are things that I think about. It's not just tax revenue that data centers bring in or the environment. It's just who are we going to be as human beings? So I don't know the answers to that because we're not going to know until it's 15, 20 years down the road, right? It's going to be an industrial revolution, and it's something that we're going to have to work very, very hard on, I believe, in Congress to make sure that we're doing things responsibly. I do believe that when it comes to data centers, we need to make sure that nobody in any community is on the hook for anything. If anything, it'd be great if they were driving down energy costs for people, but they shouldn't negatively affect the lives of people living in a community where a data center is. I don't believe that we need a lot of data centers in Minnesota, but I believe we should have some. They're going to build them somewhere, and tax revenue for the communities where they are will help them. But again, the important thing is nobody in a community is on the hook, and we have guardrails put in place so nobody's on the hook for anything that a data center brings or could bring to a community.
Thanks so much, Luke. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Stu. I appreciate you, man.